Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you my winter TBR. So these are books that I want to get through over these winter months of December, January, and February. And I feel like especially winter, I feel it is one of my favorite times to read. I feel like I'm a very seasonal reader, and for winter I always think of kind of historical fiction, fantasy, something to completely that is so atmospheric and immersive that you can just lose yourself in. And when the nights are when it gets dark outside and it's cold, it's always fun to just get cozy with a, total world absorbing book and just lose yourself in it. So these are ones that I definitely want to get to over the next few months. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, this is a new release that comes out, I want to say January 10th or so, and it is Spare by Prince Harry. Especially a Canadian, I grew up kind of knowing about the royals and all that, and I do love drama. So I'm very excited to see what this book has in store. I think he's had a very interesting life, and it will be very interesting to see his perspective. I haven't watched the Harry and Meghan documentary on Netflix, but definitely want to watch that with my mom and sister. But I think it will be very interesting to get his perspective of the event, especially having to grow up in that kind of spotlight and having to go through such traumatic events from on a world stage. I think will be very interesting, and how that has affected him and what kind of things that he's still struggling with now. So I'm very interested to read this and see his perspective. But also I do really love drama, so I'm totally here for it, but I'm really excited to pick this one up in the new year. Next up, this is a highly decorated and awarded historical fiction, and definitely in the new year I do want to read more historical fiction. I feel it in the past few years I used to read exclusively historical fiction and thrillers, and it's definitely within the past few years or so I haven't really read as much, but I do really enjoy historical fiction as a genre. So this is one that is highly awarded, and it is a trilogy too, and I've heard great things about it, and I've just been meaning to pick this one up for a while, and I think the winter time would be a good time to do so. And it is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This kind of follows England in the 1520s. It says, if the king dies without a male heir, the country could be devastated by civil war. Henry VIII wants to annul his marriage of 20 years and marry Anne Boleyn. The Pope and most of Europe oppose him. Into this impasse steps Thomas Cromwell, a wholly original man, a charmer and a bully, both idealist and opportunist, astute in reading people and impeccable in his ambition. But Henry is volatile, one day tender, one day murderous. Cromwell helps him break the opposition, but what will be the price of his triumph? So I've heard really great things about this. I've heard Sunbeam's Jess talk about this trilogy on her channel, and she's really liked it. So, and it is a winner of the Man Booker Prize. So this is one that again is very well awarded in the literary community, and I feel like it is definitely a staple for historical fiction. And I haven't really read anything from this era in particular, so it'll be really interesting to kind of learn more about this time period and kind of the history and politics and religion and everything that tied into this really important part in English history. Next up, this is a World War II historical fiction that I'm really excited to pick up, and it's been on my shelf for a while, but I'm just surprised I haven't picked it up yet. And it is Still Life by Sarah Winman, and I've heard really great things about this, and it definitely seems like it's something that is up my alley. But it says, Tuscany, 1944. As Allied troops advance and bombs fall around deserted villages, a young English soldier, Ulysses Temper, finds himself in the wine cellar of an abandoned villa. There he has a chance encounter with Evelyn Skinner, a middle-aged art historian who has come to Italy to salvage painting from the ruins and recall long-forgotten memories of her own youth. In each other, Ulysses and Evelyn find a kindred spirit amidst the rubble of war-torn Italy and set off a course of events that will shape Ulysses' life for the next 4 decades. As Ulysses returns home to London, re-immersing himself in his crew at the Stoughton Parrot, a motley mix of pub crawlers and eccentrics, he carries his time in Italy with him. And when an unexpected inheritance brings him back to where it all began, Ulysses knows better than to tempt fate and returns to the Tuscan hills. And so I think this one will be really interesting, especially where it kind of takes place 4 decades after this chance meeting, and just how like people meet each other and the impacts that it can have throughout our lives throughout decades, I think is really interesting to explore. So yeah, like I said, this one sounds really interesting and fun, so I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm kind of being like, okay, we have a lot of historical fiction on our shelves that we definitely need to get to, so this is one that I'm hoping will kind of, in addition to Wolf Hall, will kind of kickstart my love for historical fiction again. Over winter last year, I read the His Dark Materials series by Pullman, and I really loved it. And he has a new trilogy that I got all the books for after reading the original trilogy, or at least the first two that are currently out. And so I was like, winter is a good time to read these. My boyfriend read them too over at the beginning of the year, and he really enjoyed it. So the first one is the Book of Dust. And I think they're each follow different time periods within the His Dark Materials timeline. I think this one is before Lyra is born, and it follows like Lord Asriel. I don't want to read the synopsis of this one because I think it might be spoilery for the original trilogy, but I've heard great things about this. Like I said, my boyfriend really likes it, and I do really love this world. I think it is very interesting for being marketed towards young readers, like children. I thought it was very adult in themes and subject matter, and it handled things with a maturity, which I think is very different than a lot of YA middle grade series. So I think that's very interesting how he's able to kind of create things realistic in terms of outcomes and characters' decisions, which I think is a very interesting take, especially for something that is marketed or like written for children. So I'm very excited to be kind of immersed back into this world and see what is going on with this, but yeah, I'm excited. I have the first two, and I definitely think winter is a good time to kind of read this fantasy series. And lastly, this is a series that I definitely want to marathon the last two books in, and it is the Jade City trilogy by Fonda Lee. I read the first book earlier in December, and I fell in love with this trilogy, and so I have the next two, and I just want to marathon them back to back just to see what happens. I've heard tremendous things about this series overall. My boyfriend said it's probably one of his favorite series that has come out in recent years, and it is definitely something really unique. And what I really like about this is that not only has an urban fantasy setting, but it integrates a lot of political intrigue into this as well. We follow this fictional city or island of Kong, where they have people that kind of basically almost have superhero powers if they use jade, and there is kind of this kind of semi-war going on between two clans on how jade should be you know, used and dispersed within not only their island but also throughout the world. And it kind of, you see this kind of escalate throughout the book, and definitely now that the series is completed, I can kind of marathon the next two books. I think it will take a while because these books are quite massive, but I'm definitely really excited to kind of see what happens with these characters, and it's just really interesting. And I will say the first 100 pages or so of this were a little confusing, with you're just kind of thrown in and just figuring out the characters and the clan dynamics and the political system and the fantastical system as well in terms of what Jade can actually do. It was a little bit like hard to get through, but once the plot starts to pick up and you can see how these characters and everything are just so interconnected and kind of the politics behind everything, I was just blown away. So I definitely want to finish this trilogy, marathon them, read them back to back, and just see what happens, because I was shocked with some of the things that happened in here. Like, I was just blown away by how unique and well written and well thought out this trilogy is, and my boyfriend says that each book just gets better and better, so I can't wait to see how this series ends. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you want to read this winter season and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.